Point, Gotham City, New Jersey, Saturday, June 20th. It was a typical summer night in Gotham City, hot and muggy. And on a rooftop somewhere near the edge of downtown Gotham Island was Batman on the rooftop like a bird of prey, looking at Tri-Corner Island. It was going to be the new super prison Arkham City, and every day it seems more and more the prison was finishing. The once prosperous little island was now filled with cranes, building a massive wall to cordon off the island, and they just completed some sort of structure surrounding the once great Wonder Tower, which was going to be now the control center of Arkham Island. This has been a very dark time, a dark year for not only Gotham City but for the rest of the world. But it seems Gotham City has had it worse, not only with the plague, but with Mayor Quincy Sharp's very strong-handed, totalitarian methods. He has turned the city almost into a police state. There was no need for lockdown in Gotham City. All he did was just enact a social distancing order. No one was allowed to gather in large numbers in public, and anyone who did were violently taken out by the Tiger Guards. And as the nation was facing protests from recent events, Gotham City, you could not protest. Tiger has several times taken out protesters violently, and they have the power to do so. There was nothing anyone could really do to stop them. Of course, Bruce Wayne, being a very public figure in Gotham City, tried his best to be the guiding force in the protest against the opening of Arkham City. But the very strict social distancing laws in Gotham City has hampered his effort. He just couldn't hold rallies, couldn't really do anything. He had to utilize the power of the media, the news outlets, television, social media, and the internet. He has become the public face of the protest against Arkham City. He's not alone. There were other prominent citizens of Gotham City that supported him, and many people outside who saw this as a very bad idea. Well, for his alter ego Batman, it was even harder. He was number one on Tiger's hit list. And every night going out as Batman was way too risky. He was always a target. They were always looking for him. Many nights he had to just lay low and really couldn't do anything to go after criminals. And other nights he was able to do something. But every night was getting increasingly dangerous. A storm was beginning to roll in from the sea. As Batman was looking at the clouds coming in, he saw a bright flash of lightning and a loud crackle of thunder. Batman then leaps off the roof. As he did, there was another bright flash of lightning illuminating everything around him, and then he dives until he activates the glide feature of his cape and quickly glides down to the lower rooftops of the surrounding buildings. And then there, Batman begins to run, jumping rooftop to rooftop. His destination, Oracle's Clock Tower. Batman finally arrives to Oracle's Clock Tower. He gets in through the secret rooftop entrance and jumps down. There, waiting for him, was Oracle, aka Cassie Cain. Cassie Cain was Bruce Wayne's longtime best friend. They knew each other in college. Both of them were just young teenagers who entered Hudson University, while Bruce Wayne did it through just sheer determination and luck. Kathy did it because she was a genius. And like her best friend Bruce Wayne, she too was a billionaire. And just like Bruce, she also ran a major multi-billion-dollar corporation. While Wayne Enterprises mainly makes computer chips and graphics cards and has different little divisions to make engines, supercars, marine vehicles and military weapons and vehicles. Her company is a software company making software from everything to supercomputer operating systems to security programs for the Defense Department. And just like her best friend Bruce Wayne, she herself became a costume vigilante for a short time, known as Batwoman. And after her stint as Batwoman, she hangs up her cape and cowl and becomes Oracle, Batman's electronic eyes and ears in the city. Inside the clock tower, it was filled with big LED display screens and several rows of tall computer towers and a empty seat in front of a keyboard. And Batman calls out,
Oracle, where are you?
She says, I'm right over here, as she was coming from around the corner with a mug of coffee that had steam coming out. And then she says to Batman, Batman, we got bad news. As she walks over to her desk chair, she sits down, twists it around, and starts punching away at the keyboards. Then the forward display screen begins to display some graphical data. And Oracle twists her desk chair back around to face Batman, and she says, It's getting worse. Last night, they tried to hack into our communication system again, and I was able to stop them, but it seems like every day they're getting closer and closer to breaking into our communications. Pretty soon, we won't have no privacy, she says to the Dark Knight. Then Batman asks her,
What about their communications? Are you having any luck hacking it?
Oracle says to Batman, No, I'm not. I've never seen anything like this before. They have a software so strong that everything I've thrown at it, I just can't break into it. We would have better luck breaking into Fort Knox than breaking into Tiger's communication network. Then she goes on to say, At least I got one good news, Batman, she says. We'll be able to fend off the Tiger hacking attacks once we begin beta testing a new state-of-the-art security system that my company has been developing called Rotella. It will hopefully give us the protection we need, says Oracle. And Batman responds back,
Hopefully it does.
Then Batman lets out a loud sigh.
Ugh.
Then Batman proceeds to turn off his Sonovox voice changer located in the throat of his cowl, and then he pulls off the top half of his cowl, revealing his face, and he says to Kathy, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I'm so tired. I'm so weak, he says to her. Kathy quickly gets up from her chair and rolls it over to Batman and says, Bruce, sit down, please, sit. Bruce sits on the desk chair, and Kathy gets down on her knees next to Bruce, and she could clearly see the tiredness in his face. And she says, My God, Bruce, you look so terrible. Bruce says, I spread myself too thin, publicly opposing Arkham City and privately fighting against it and against Hugo Strange. He's too much for me, Kathy, says Bruce. I can't. He's always a step ahead of me. Almost every night that I go out, Tiger's there, tracking me down, trying to either capture me or kill me, and I just can't. Then Kathy says to Bruce, Bruce, listen, if you have to, quit being Batman for a while. They're like machines. They're relentless, and they're not going to stop until you're down, she says to Bruce. And besides, look at you. You're suffering from exhaustion, and it's going to cause you to make a mistake, and one mistake with Tiger and Hugo Strange, and you are done. Then Bruce says to Kathy, okay, tonight this is the final mission, and after I'm done, Batman's going to lay low for a while. Kathy says to Bruce, that's a good idea. So Bruce gets up from the desk chair, and Kathy gives Bruce a tight hug, and the two embrace each other. And Bruce says to Kathy, I would be lying to you if I didn't say this, but I'm actually scared. And Kathy says, "It's okay, Bruce. I'm scared too. This is nothing like we faced before ever in the years we've been doing this together." Bruce lets out a slight smile and says to Kathy, "Kathy, you're the best friend a man could ever have." And Kathy says, "Likewise to you. Be careful out there," she says. Then Bruce grabs his cowl, puts it back on, activates the voice-changing Sonovox, and leaves the clock tower. Meanwhile, somewhere in downtown Gotham, a old drug lord by the name of Charlie Wallace is getting ready to leave. He himself was a minor player in Gotham's underworld, always has been. And he, like many of his other predecessors who made it to their mid-60s, decided it was time to retire as Tiger was really encroaching on his operations. He was never that big, but he always did help out as a distributor to many of the other bigger crime bosses like Penguin, Falcone, and the Maronis. He was leaving his house in the historic district in downtown. He was being accompanied by a small entourage of younger men, one of them being his nephew, Andy Wallace, who was gonna take over the business when he retires. Him and his small entourage of men get inside a stretch Escalade limo that was waiting in front of the house for them. Then the limo drives off. Unbeknownst to them, in a tall tree across the street from the house, and the tops of it, was Batman watching them depart. Well, later, as the Escalade limo was driving down the highway towards the executive airport, Charlie was having a little meeting in the back of the limo, and he says, "Well, gentlemen, my nephew here, Andy, is going to take over operation. As soon as we relocate to Bloodhaven, I'll retire officially and then move to my new home in Jamaica and live out the rest of my years," he says to his men. The men all clap and cheer him on, and he says to his men, "Well, it's been a fun 45 years, but right now things are getting too dangerous here in Gotham City. So it's time to cash in my chips and head back to home," he says. As he was saying that, the driver of the limo was noticing something on the display screen that was being picked up by the review cameras of the limo. It was the Batmobile. It was starting to catch up to them, and he says, "Mr. Wallace, sir, you better look behind you. We got company." Then Charlie presses a button on the armrest that switches to the review camera on the TV screen in the limo, and he sees the Batmobile starting to catch up to them. And then Charlie screams, "What are you waiting for, Mon? An invitation? Lose him now!" Then the driver says, "Yes, sir," and he floors it. This was not a standard Escalade limo. This Escalade limo had a lot of modifications to it, like body armor, bullet-resistant windows, puncture-proof tires, and a modified engine to make a quick getaway. As the chase had begun, the Batmobile was catching up to it, but the limo driver was a professional stunt driver, and he knew how to handle a big vehicle in tight situations. And the chase was going on as they were weaving in and out of cars. Then, to lose the Batmobile, the limo driver threw the limo into a drift. It was very difficult to do a drift with a limo, but he could, and using the big body size of the limo caused all the cars to collide with one another in the intersection to avoid hitting the limo. Well, it worked, and there was a heck of a pileup, and Batman could not get through in his Batmobile. All the men in the limo were cheering and congratulating the driver. Later, the Escalade limo pulls up to a private jet on the tarmac of the executive airport. All the men inside the back of the limo come out and walk up the steps to the private jet. Charlie Wallace was the last one. He pauses briefly at the middle of the steps, looks up to the sky, and said to himself aloud, "At least the storm cleared," and then gets inside. Once he was inside, the jet shuts the door, and now it was waiting for the takeoff clearance. Well, the Batmobile was now starting to catch up as it was on the tarmac speeding towards the jet. But somebody else was coming up on the private jet in the executive airport. It was Tiger, as a Tiger attack helicopter was coming in fast. Then the Tiger attack helicopter begins to fire a barrage of missiles into the fuselage of Wallace's private jet. The jet was destroyed, killing all on board. Then the helicopter fired one more missile at the Escalade limo, killing the driver. Batman knew it was his cue to get out, so he quickly puts the Batmobile in reverse, does a 3-point turn, and speeds out of the executive airport. But the Tiger helicopter lays in pursuit. The pilot says on the radio,
Central, come in. This is Sky Tiger 14. We have acquired the main target, Batman, in his vehicle. We're laying in pursuit.
And the Tiger attack helicopter was pursuing the Batmobile. Batman does a sharp right, then a sharp left. Then as soon as he got onto Breyfogle Boulevard, there was a traffic jam. He was stuck. And the Tiger helicopter was coming in quick. Batman could pick it up on his radar. Then Batman activates the radar-guided missile. It gets a lock onto the attack helicopter. Then Batman fires one missile towards the helicopter that was coming up behind him. Well, with the explosion and the helicopter crashing, traffic quickly picked up and Batman was able to get away. He finally makes it back to the Batcave. As he parks the Batmobile on the turntable, the canopy opens up, Batman jumps out, and soon he begins to take off his suit. Once he was done, he goes back upstairs to the manor. Once he was back in the manor, he looks at the clock. It was just a few minutes past midnight. He decided to go to bed. Then, around 7:30 in the morning, Alfred enters his bedroom with his breakfast in bed. The usual fare, a can of cola, fried eggs over easied, bacon, and a tall glass of orange juice. Alfred sits the tray down in front of Bruce. Bruce begins to eat, and Alfred says, "My, Master Bruce, I see that Batman caused quite the scene last night." Bruce takes a big swallow, and he says, "Yes, Tiger got to Wallace before I did, and then they tried to take me out, but I was able to take out that attack helicopter." Then he says to Alfred, "Alfred, give my suit a thorough cleaning. Batman's not going back out for a good long while." Then Bruce says to Alfred, "I have too much on my plate right now, and I'm exhausted. Plus, Tiger's getting more and more relentless in their hunt for me. So I'm going to lay low for a little bit until I can formulate a better strategy to be safe out there." Then Alfred says to Bruce, "That's a wise idea, Master Bruce." And then he goes on to say, "While you have this extra downtime, sir, may I recommend that you clean the inside of the Batmobile? It's starting to smell like a gym locker room in there, sir." Bruce then says, "Well, Alfred, I'll get on it tonight as soon as I get back home from work." Then Bruce gets up and does his morning routine that he does when he gets ready for work. Meanwhile, in Arkham Island, which is now the base for Tiger, in his office, Hugo Strange was looking at the computer monitors and was looking at the wreckage of the helicopter being brought in to the vehicle garage. Afterwards, Hugo Strange goes to his desk chair and he sits at his desk and he says, My, Mr. Wayne, you're proving to be a real thorn on my side." Then he says, "Well, Mr. Wayne, enjoy it while you last, because soon you will be dead." Like and subscribe. The end.